when you're super, super tired and overly fatigued and overtrained, it's just another symptom of making bad decisions. If athletes could just take that mantra of, I'm not going to make any stupid decisions today, then you're going to be successful.
Good morning, Coach Robbie.
Hey, happy Monday. Welcome to Crushing Iron Podcast, episode 278. No, 277?
277, man.
277. I was cheating a little bit, trying to inch our way. I was doing the typical triathlete thing. I ran 2.82 miles, so I ran 3.
Yeah.
And that's basically the math I was using. But welcome, June 17th, 2019. It's a Monday. And again, welcome aboard the Crushing Iron Podcast. Come to you every Monday and Thursday. Well, mostly every Monday and Thursday. But we at least come to you every week, twice a week, and have been for quite some time. And we provide you with triathlon training info, life, experience. I'm the coach. I'm Coach Robbie, and that is...
Coach Athlete Mike.
Yeah, Coach Athlete Mike.
Age grouper Mike.
Age group extraordinaire.
Getting up there in the age groups.
You are getting up there in age groups. We won't talk about that today.
Hey, speaking of that, you're on the cusp.
Hey, stop it.
Happy birthday, Coach.
It's an age group up here, which, if you're a triathlete, you really only count age groups every 4 years, or birthdays. But yeah, it's...
Is this age group up for you?
Well, technically not this year, but it's...
Yeah, I was going to say.
It caused my next year, yeah, because that means... next year is the big 4-0.
Big 4-0, man.
Couldn't be any more overrated because I'm
Let
not even close to.
Need.
You're closer to the 6-0. So I've got quite a ways. I'm not even close to peaking yet. So I have no, the age is just a number, and you've proven that many times. We've talked about that before. But age is just a number. But yeah, that is that'll be next year. So all my races next year will be 40-44. So looking forward to bumping up into the another age group, and hopefully
another speedy age group.
Another speedy age group, or they just continue to get harder. But no, all in all, it's all good. Just continue to do the best I can, and see how I can hang with the older dudes, and just hope that they're not all hopped up on testosterone by the time I get up there.
No, they will.
Yeah, no. But yeah, if this is your first time listening, we thank you for joining us. You can always go to iTunes and subscribe. Leave us a review. We do really, really appreciate all the people that have taken time for all time, but especially the last week or two that have taken time to give us reviews. They're incredibly helpful, not for us and our sponsorship endeavors, because this is a commercial-free podcast. We tend not to try and shill out, superlatives and things that we love just by the mere fact that they make us provide a 4-minute commercial for something that we really don't care about. But they do help other athletes find us, and we're always looking to expand our community, which is centered around the podcast, but you can also be a part of it. If you hop on Facebook, you can search Crushing Iron Group, and we'll let you in. And it's a wonderful group and community with just a lot of awesome people with tons of experience, and are always very open and willing to generally help you in questions and stuff surrounding your races and stuff. So you can be a part of that. So yeah, that helps. The reviews help us get more listeners, and listeners create just a bigger, better, open community. So do that, and we appreciate you joining us, and we'll do our best today to provide more experience around the joys of triathlon and life.
Yep. Boy, age is just a number, man. Except yesterday, it wasn't.
Oh, no. Did you have a little? Well, I'm gonna guess. Is this referring to you?
Of course it is.
Yeah. Well, you're definitely, but you don't show it. I mean, you don't look your age. I wouldn't say.
No. But sometimes it's just tough.
But I'm gonna guess that it's also is probably dependent on. I'm guessing you probably ran yesterday.
I did.
Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and say this, and I'm not saying this to kind of give you a break, but I noticed it with the athletes that I was checking in on Training Peaks this morning, and we're here in Nashville, and it's been unseasonably cool for the last, probably 7 to 10 days. I mean, compared to what it usually is in June, it's usually in the high 80s, 90s. The humidity's crazy, the dew point's insane, and you're like, all right, I can finally get acclimated to the heat. And then in typical Nashville weather is, if you don't like the temperature, stick around, because it changes like every single day. And yesterday, boy, was it humid. And the dew point was high, and the heat and the sun was out, and it was windy. So I'm guessing you probably had a little bit of a struggle on a run yesterday.
Yeah, a little bit.
Little bit.
And Saturday was bad too, kind of.
Oh, Saturday was bad too. Well,
that was my long ride at the Trace. But but I do. No, I feel it's amazing. Honestly, I'm very grateful that I was able to even pull off what I did this weekend at my age. That's the thing I have to reflect on. So, and I don't feel bad at all today. I mean, I'm just a little bit fatigued, and that's part of the sport.
It is.
Frankly.
It is. It's very much part of the sport. But carrying some general fatigue is, and I think that's kind of one of the more misunderstood kind of phrases within the sport, is that you should always be carrying in some fatigue, musculature fatigue, within the realm of a training cycle before you recover. Definitely, obviously, leading up to a big race. But what you don't want to be is tired all the time. And there's a huge difference in athletes who are like, because let's just be honest, some athletes are totally obsessed with just being tired 100% of the time. Like that's their badge of honor. Like they think they're doing their body well and training for Ironman with their 24-hour weeks that just make them just insanely tired. And if you're telling yourself before a workout, I'm exhausted or I'm torched, then you're not training with benefit. You're just training to stay tired. So being exhausted and being overly tired is a bad thing. It doesn't mean you're getting better and more fit. It just means you're training yourself tired and digging yourself a bigger hole. And you're probably going to get injured. You're probably going to get sick. Now, should you be carrying in some fatigue? Yes. But that fatigue should show up not always in your mind or in like just total over exhaustion with fueling. It should show up in your body in terms of it's taking you a while to warm up. Like generally for me, like that's how I know, that's how I can kind of gauge personally, and then also via athletes' comments in their training, how much fatigue or where they're actually feeling. In terms of how the training load is going. Like we've talked about this before. And you just kind of mentioned it yourself, is a great comment to get as a coach is, that run or that ride, I felt surprisingly good today after yesterday. The goal is not to stay tired on some inevitable continuum where you're just getting more tired, more tired, more tired. You should be able to. A great sign of fitness and your ability to be resistant to fatigue and your body getting fitter and more shape is how well you're able to shed fatigue day after day after day and how quickly your body is recovering. And so, like you said, you feel better today than you probably thought you did, or considering the circumstances, especially with heat and when those things definitely take more things out of you. But it's the longer it takes you to warm up, that always tells me what kind of fatigue an athlete is showing. If they warm up after let's say they're doing a long ride after in 4 hours, and they warm up in 15 minutes, I'm feeling great. That tells me they're not carrying that much, if really any, amount of fatigue. I mean, because generally speaking, it takes me 10 minutes, even if I haven't worked out in 3 or 4 days, to get warm or get loose. But if an athlete is doing a long ride and it took them 45 to 90 minutes to warm up, then you kind of get an understanding of they're carrying a very good amount of fatigue, because it's going to take that long for their body to get warm, that long for their body to get loose. And then if they say they never got warm, they never got fully warmed up, and their legs never came around, then it's time for a little bit of rest. Because that's the point that you've reached where I'm just too tired. The goal for the workout was to execute it and become stronger and faster and more fit. But what you in turn did, if you never warmed up fully and you never got to the point to where you could put forth the effort to execute the workout, is you just trained tired. and you just dug yourself further in a hole. So now it's going to take extra days to recover. So for me personally, and as a coach looking at athletes' training programs, that is always a great indicator of fitness, fatigue, and how quickly you're recovering, which is, the three main things that you're, mostly monitoring as a coach. And it's a great indicator that you can see in numbers, but then you really just need to hear it from the athlete too, from their, in their own words, how they're feeling and how they're recovering.
That's such a huge thing, man. I can't tell you how many times, I'm coaching club members. We have about 100 club members, and I'm getting more into coaching full time with about 10 people, and I can't tell you how many times I see that. I'm tired. I don't know, middle of the week. I'm really tired, and then I check in like a couple days later, and they just did a 3-hour ride, and they're like, "Man, I felt surprisingly great today."
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is that misconception, that confusion between fatigue and being tired, and what that really means, and understanding that that's just part of the game, and we have to figure out where we're at on that scale, and I think those were some really good ways of describing it that you just had. But what are some other, like when you're tired, when you're just absolutely wiped out and you keep plowing through? I mean, obviously, I think it kind of it's more of a head thing, right? Like your eyes start feeling tired, and like if your legs just feel like bricks. That's always the analogy. Or, man, my legs were just heavy today. That's kind of the fatigue more than if you feel like taking a nap every time you go around the corner at work. I mean, are there like clearer indicators like that? Because I always try to.
For me, this is, again, like both personally as a coach, athletes, the swim and how an athlete feels in the swim is always usually a really, really good barometer of how their overall training fatigue is going. Because I know as a coach, and most athletes just despise going to the pool. I mean, they just do. It's the most work. It's the most time for the least return on your investment. And so when athletes start to just not want to go, then that's sign number one. Or if they go and they get out, that's sign number two. Or if they just say, this was the worst swim ever, I'm totally exhausted, then I know that overall fatigue is too much. Because swimming is a whole body workout. Running, you can just run slow and kind of get through it, but swimming, it's hard for a lot of athletes to swim super slow because they'll just sink. But in terms of like balancing that, like tired and fatigue, yeah. I mean, you should not feel totally even during. That's like you'll see us on Facebook, like if you have a lot of friends that do triathlons and that do longer distances, that's like every day they're like totally exhausted today, but did this. Like, you shouldn't be totally exhausted all the time. You just shouldn't. Like, it's not it doesn't mean your training's working, it just means you're just like training tired. And you see that a lot with athletes that are obsessed with volume, and long and slow. Is that they continue to beat themselves up for these like huge, like long periods of time, and the recovery costs are so great because they're probably A, not prepared for it, but B, they did it for so long that they're just continuing to dig themselves a hole of overtraining, so they're never really truly going to reach their potential or perform the way they really want to perform on race day. And so generally, like, I think there are a lot of really good things to check in terms of like, how is my training going? How am I feeling? Am I fatigued? Like, if you want to go work out and you're excited about it, then you're not fatigued. You're not tired. I mean, I think most people would agree with that, right? Mm-hmm. Like, if you're excited about training, if you're excited about getting out for the next day, then it's perfect. Even if you're feeling kind of ambivalent about it, like, I'm going to go train today because I know I need to, and then you comment like, okay, this feels pretty good. And you always give yourself the warm up. That's again, like, that's why your slowest mile and everything your first mile should be your slowest. Give everybody time to warm up. I mean, then I even make this like a very specific comment in the description when I assign some workouts, especially on the bike, is like, don't even look at your watch or your Garmin for the first hour. Like, it doesn't matter. You're just getting your legs warm. You know, like picture the we're about to the Tour de France is about to come on, and we're going to be all about Tour de France for 2 weeks, and it's great and it's fun to watch. And like the first 2 hours, what do you see them doing? Just straight chilling. Like they are absolutely just for them barely pedaling in a group for a very long time to get totally 100% loose. Then you see them when they do the TTs for the first hour and a half, they're getting loose on the trainer because it takes that. Now, all of us, we're not doing by any stretch Tour de France volume, but when you look at the comparison of fitness and the comparison of the percentage of volume that age groupers do, the comparison of percentage of what they do, that it's somewhat similar if you're training for a full Ironman, and so it takes time. But you don't if you're grumpy, and that's usually the first sign. If you're just really grumpy and irritable, and you're starting to have negative thoughts about the race that you're going to do, then it means you're probably overtrained and you're way too tired. And some people tend to think I've just lost my motivation, and losing your motivation is, a lot of people jump to that as I've just been. I think they put it in the wrong bucket of why can't I find motivation? They're really hard on themselves. Why I've just lost motivation. I can't figure it out. I'm just mentally, I don't know why I can't. And we've talked about this before multiple times, is that in order to be motivated, you have to have energy.
Yep.
You have to have energy to be motivated. If you're totally exhausted and you're lacking on sleep and you're lacking on energy and you're lacking on fueling and you haven't been eating right, you're not going to be motivated. This isn't rocket science. It's not that you just lost the will and the love to train and you're just an unmotivatable person. It's you're just tired. So I think that's another kind of self-check is have I just become totally disinterested in the event that I'm doing? And if I have been, then the likelihood is that maybe I'm just too tired and maybe I need to take a day. Because if you boil it down to the most simplistic analogy we can give, it's when you wake up in the morning and you kind of feel junk and you maybe didn't sleep good, you're today is going to be terrible. Today is going to be the worst. I just can't catch a break. And you're dude, you woke up with 6 hours sleep versus 7, you're deciding you're going to ruin your whole day. Mm-hmm. But what that does to your mind, and then how you make decisions, what to do or what not to do, really, really shows you a reflection of where your energy is and where your motivation should or can't be based on that. And that's just another great way of kind of doing a self-check of, all right, where am I mentally and emotionally? And that almost always tells you where you are physically, instead of going the reverse. Where I am physically tells me it's where you are mentally and emotionally. That's always a great indicator and a great, it just gives you great insight to where you are physically.
I think there's a challenge, especially with endurance athletes too, is that a lot of what we experience in training, it's kind of those highs, those endorphin highs or whatever that you get from working out, that feeling. It's man, I'm on top of the world kind of thing. And then that sort of spills over into your daily life. And if you're getting, for example, when I'm going into a race, I get really kind of disciplined about my diet and my rest and my vitamins and nutrition and all that sort of stuff and my hydration. And I'm okay, it's a month out. I'm going to, get into this pattern and force myself to do stuff that I, tend to let slide, 3 months out or whatever like that. And what happens is at least for me, I'll start reaching for those cheap thrills of, Cliff Bars or sugars and things of that nature. And I might not hydrate as much, and I might not eat healthy meals, but just quicker meals that kind of are going to give me a little bit of a pickup or something like that. And I think those kind of spiral into the potential for being overtired as well, because you're not fueling. I mean, it sounds kind of elementary, but it's kind of hard sometimes to get done with a tough workout and then, go to some kind of meal that really is a nutritious, balanced meal versus some kind of protein shake and You know what I mean? You tend to, or like a lot of carbs, or donuts, or whatever the case may be. And I think those things kind of snowball on top of each other sometimes. And so, it's sort of seeking that high, or like that cheaper high that it's like, man, I don't want to feel tired right now, even though I should. And I know I should probably just give my body what it really needs, but I want to keep going with this. I feel like I just got done with, conquering the world. So I want to, eat a bunch of bread or candy bars or whatever.
But I think it's such a great point in that, like in that the tired and grumpy, and the way that you feel in general, like when you reach for like items that you don't normally reach for when it comes to nutrition and fueling and your day-to-day food intake, is almost always a representation of mood and a choice. And if you're having a bad day or you're struggling, you're looking for something to feel good about, or something that's going to give you a quick response that, even if you know it's not going to be good for you, you're going to do it anyway. You choose usually for something that's, you don't choose for a salad. You're going to jump for like a burger with fries or a milkshake or something fun.
Yeah, because you're invincible at that moment too. Right, but you feel like it.
But it's that's the easiest thing. Like the easiest thing to do is grab something that's gonna even though inherently this is only going to give me a very short term okay and a short term quote unquote feel good, but then I know for 100% fact in 2 hours I'm gonna feel like shit.
Right.
And I'm gonna feel worse with myself. And so like being tired and grumpy, like when you do those things, when you're super tired and overly fatigued and overtrained, is you do reach those things because it's just another symptom of making bad decisions. And we do that because it's going to make you at least somewhat feel good. Like, you know what? I need that cup of coffee at 4 because I'm just not feeling that good. Or maybe you just need to keep not feeling good so you can go to bed early and wake up the next day and be ready to rock and roll. And that's just like, but we love to put off the inevitable and put off the ultimate decision that we need to change course and change direction. And usually the main factor in that is fear. Like telling an athlete to not work out, telling them to shorten up a ride, telling them to shorten up a run, or don't go to the pool today, or take a day off. For most athletes who are really motivated and really type A, and they think that it's going to ruin their year.
Their year, yeah.
Oh my God, I can't take 2 or 3. Look at all the time I've missed. Like, it's like 1% of the year. And in fact, let's make I had to make this comment on a guy's Training Peaks this morning. It's like there should be 3 phases: healthy, sick, or getting better. And the 2 that should last the longest are getting better and healthy. Sick should be for the smallest amount of time, or tired, or fatigued, or overtrained. Those should happen for like, I don't know, like a 24-hour period, because and if you haven't listened to our podcast with Starkey early last year, you should, because one of the biggest tips he gave people was when he gets sick or he comes down with something, the number one thing he thinks about is, if I'm sick, then I shut it down, and my number one objective is to get 100% healthy as quickly as possible. And you can't do that by continuing to train hard and do things that are going to prevent your immune system and your body from recovering. But most athletes are so insanely terrified to take a day off or to take some easier days that they never get healthy. They never get well. So they just stay sick, or they stay injured, or they stay hurt. Like they just stay there. And if you stay in those phases of overtrained and too tired and way over fatigued and hurt or injured, guess what you're not getting? You're not getting any better. You're just staying the same, and you're preventing yourself from performing better down the road, because what do you want to do? Do you want to take 2 or 3 days of no training and get totally healthy so you can spend the next 2.5 weeks training at 100%? Or do you want to train at 30% for a week and a half until you kind of maybe get better, and then it goes up to 60, and then it goes up to 80, and then you finally crash and burn for a week, and then you force yourself to get 100%? Well, now you just wasted a month. And so many athletes do this, and they don't listen to their bodies, and they're so terrified to take a day off that they just continue to dig and dig and dig and dig and dig. And I mentioned this in I think maybe last week's podcast, is like one of the, towards the end, is like one of the greatest signs for me as a coach that an athlete is doing really, really well, and they're finally kind of getting it, is when they self-impose a day off. Like an athlete two athletes who are very, very high-performing athletes, they're on podium at Ironman events. They're just very, very good athletes, and they train a lot and they work a lot. And they both said, I could feel myself getting a little too tired. Work was too stressful. And when this happens, I'm usually probably about to get sick. So I went ahead and made the call to take the day off. I couldn't give you any more thumbs up. Like, as a coach, you're not like, oh, but you got to push through. Yeah, that's like the dumbest thing ever. Like, if you have a coach that tells you that, then they're an idiot. It's a huge decision to make, and it shows huge objectivity. And the thing it shows the most of is they're putting them and their performance above all else, and their body and their sustainability. They're not solely focused on today. What about today? They're thinking about, how is this going to set me up for success in the long term? And that is something that just most athletes they just can't wrap their mind around. And it's just impossible. They just can't wrap their mind around it.
Yeah, I was talking about when I used to talk about when I'd go into Training Peaks and I would see, like a yellow, how that would, if it was on the short side of something, I would always look at that as a plus, because I feel like somebody's thinking usually, or they're gauging their fatigue or tiredness or whatever, and they're just like, yeah, I went out and I started it and I didn't quite have it all, so I kind of just backed off. So I think of it in that way too. I was making a comment last night, I think, about somebody, it's kind of weird because I feel like as coaches, we are always talking to people. One of our things is always sort of pulling people back, and like you just hit on it. A lot of coaches, that the mentality is sort of keep pushing, drive through it, all that. But in this sport, it's so sensitive, it's so fragile that I feel like I'm always kind of like either encouraging people that it's okay to take it a little easy when they're down or whatever. And I think that's kind of a weird thing. But one of the things I said was he talked about how he started slow and then he had a really good run. He started really super slow. And I said, well, in general, I think the negative split philosophy in training is just like something that is golden all across the board. And you mentioned it earlier about how it takes a while to warm up your legs on a bike. And I think people just don't understand that or forget it. It's easy to do. You might go out there and be like, I'm on the bike. It's a great day. I feel awesome. And the next thing you know, you're just cooking right out of the gate. And then towards the end of that workout, it's just falling apart. And that happens a lot on the run too. It's just like, be patient with the beginnings. Let your body warm up into something, because I think in the general sense, when you talk about fatigue and being tired, that those decisions and those approaches to working out can really make that happen quicker. Like, it can really throw you into a spiral a lot faster if you're always working out in reverse like that, where you're going out faster than you should and then you're dying at the end. Whereas if you went out slow and you kind of eased yourself into it, let your body sink in and get it going on the right, and it's like, okay, I know what we're doing. I feel good now. Then you can end stronger. And I think that it may come down to that sometimes. It's like just that over exuberance in the beginning of whatever workout it is that sets you up for failure.
And it's like, you're making like all the awesome points today. It is the most, to me, it's the most obvious thing in the world, but it is the most neglected opportunity and part of training that athletes just totally ignore. Is that when you're in training and you're building up fatigue and I guess here's the other biggest difference, is that if you're building up fatigue, it's because you're consistent. You're not the person who goes out and crushes Monday and Tuesday and then can't work out for 3 days and comes back again. You probably don't have these aches and pains, but if you don't, you only work out twice a week, you're never going to reach your potential anyway. So, you can probably mute the rest of this for like the next 10 minutes. But if you're super consistent and you're building up fatigue, you wake up every day like, a lot of stupid college kids. You wake up every day with a stranger, and you don't have any idea. Because your body is going to be a stranger. You're not going to have any idea how it's going to feel. You're not going to be able to predict because for most athletes, listen, like you're doing things you've never done in your life, ever. And you've never done this consistently in your life. And you never built up this distance in your life. You've never done this much training and volume back to back in your life. Or you've never done it at this intensity or at this speed. And so you wake up every day and you just have no idea. And so you have to take these long warm-ups, especially in cycling and running. You have to take this time to figure out, who am I today? And do I have it? And I think that it's just so underrated, and it's also why like learning your body and going by feel is such a vital piece of understanding and knowledge to have as a long distance athlete, and not plugging a number in that you have to hit. And that's why I absolutely just hate athletes, or even honestly like when coaches give athletes an exact pace to hit for every single run. It's not good. I'm just going to say it. It's not good for the athlete to give them an exact pace every run, because you have no idea, unless you can predict the future, what that athlete is, unless you can predict their stress and their overall life and their overall response to all the training, and you can predict all that perfectly. You have no idea what they're going to wake up and they're going to be every day. And they need to learn that for themselves. So if I wake up and I said, Mike, you got to hit 8-minute miles today, and you got to hit it for 10 miles, and you woke up and for some reason you didn't have a lot of sleep, Maddie kept you up all night, and you probably made a bad food choice. You ordered pizza at 8:30, then had a Snickers and chased it down with the Coke, and you wake up and feel like crap. You're going to go out and hit those 8s, or at least you're going to try to. But the 85 to 90% your training plan or your coach or your whatever system thought you might be today had you functioning around 85 to 90%, so you could probably hit those 8s. But what your body and your lifestyle choice and your decision making led you to feel was 50, maybe even 45.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go out to hit those 8s, you are digging a hole that's now going to alter the undulating volume and intensity distribution and training stresses for the rest of the week and for all time, until you reset it and bring it back to kind of that baseline or kind of training homeostasis. But when you allow athletes to feel their way through, and I felt so much better towards the end of my run. It took me 30 minutes, but I felt good. You allow them to make the decision. What it also allows them to get that feeling of when they come off. And that's why I think bricks are so overrated. Is if you run enough, you're going to run plenty tired. And so when you do a long bike on a Saturday and you get up and you run on a Sunday, guess what, dude? You're running on tired legs. Even if it's not, those 20 minutes off the bike, or, for some people who do like an hour and a half off the bike, you're still running on tired legs, but it gives you a chance to feel it out. And it gives you a chance to not jump to conclusions on how this run is going to end based on the first mile. Never judge a run on the first mile, but have a conversation with your body. And so every day in training, at least if you're being consistent, and at least if you're building up some fatigue and you're doing things you've never done before at a different intensity or duration or volume, whatever it is, you're going to wake up with a totally different body, and you're not going to have any idea. And the same could be said for if you went to bed the night before and you're like, oh my God, I don't know how I'm going to work out tomorrow, and you make a preemptive judgment on how your body's going to respond. I think you did this last week even. You're like, I'm going to take the day off tomorrow. Then you woke up the next day and you're like, I feel kind of good. I don't need a day off today. But it was for most people, and it may have not been for you, but for most people, it might be hard to kind of regather yourself to that mental place of focus when you're like, but I told myself I was taking a day off today. It's kind of like the professional sports team who's like a number 1 seed, and they go in and they're playing like a really crappy team, And then they get absolutely like bum rushed. Like, whoa, they're like, they just weren't ready for it.
Mm-hmm.
They have the talent, they have the ability, they just weren't ready for it because they weren't mentally prepared to be engaged and to perform. And it takes them a while, not because they're not just a better athlete or a better team or a better unit. It's that they just weren't mentally and emotionally prepared to be engaged for that long a period of time. And so the same thing can happen mentally and emotionally the day before if you're like, but I know I'm not going to have it tomorrow. I'm just exhausted. And so you wake up and your first thought is, you've already kind of programmed yourself that I can't today or I'm not going to today. But then your body's like, but yes, I can. And then you kind of have to flip the script on, I do feel good today. All right, now I got to take a minute and kind of regroup and mentally focus so I can make sure I can execute this again. So there's a lot of things, a lot of moving parts, and it's not easy, but it all stems from doing like that systems check and feeling out who you are that day and listening to your body and gaining that feel. Because again, like, you're going to have those feelings and thoughts on race day, especially if you do long distance. You're going to have them over the course of the whole race. And they're going to undulate up and down to greatness to terrible. And you're going to have to navigate that. And if you don't listen to your body and you don't go through those ups and downs and you make split snap decisions on I got to go 100% or I got to stop and go 0, then race day is going to be difficult because you're going to make snap decisions and judgments that aren't in your best interest.
Mm-hmm. And back to quickly about you just had a brick example, and we've talked about it a lot of times. How I wouldn't say that we don't believe in bricks, but we don't believe in frequent bricks all the time, just because. And I think to my point about how when we start our workout, sometimes we don't allow our body to adjust and warm up properly. I think the brick is one of the worst examples of that. Is that you get off your bike ride and it might be a 3 or 4 hour ride, and I just got a 20-minute brick. I'm just going to go pound this out. And then I think there's a natural tendency for most people to be like, I'm going to use this as a test. I'm going to see how fast I can run off the bike.
Mm-hmm.
And plus you're coming off the bike, so your legs are used to moving. You're warmed up and in a lot of ways, but not necessarily for run legs, and you end up going out faster. And most people start the race faster than they should. So I think that's one place that you can really build bad habits too, is that, you can get off that bike and you can, we've talked about it before, you can ruin your race in the first 3 miles of that run of a full or any triathlon, really, if you go out too hard. And I think if you're going to do bricks, that's one of those things you really need to almost double concentrate on, is like, okay, I need to really be careful here because I'm not racing right now and I'm just trying to put some fatigue on my legs. I'm not trying to be, set a record for the fastest brick right now, because that's so easy to do,
Get so caught up in the moment.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just that's everything is just getting caught up in the moment of what do I have to do today and what's today, and not the ripple effect it has on the remaining week or the remaining block or the remaining training cycle or your race. And athletes in general, and I think just people in general, are in good and bad, are just such prisoner of the moment, in that they make rash decisions and judgments and choices on the immediacy of a reaction or a result without taking in the whole picture, or what's going to end up being the summary of their training is going to end in their race. And then look back on a race and have a performance and they wonder where it all went wrong. And if you're taking like a view from the sky, you can probably pinpoint, okay, well, there was one and there was one and there was one and there was one and there was one. And the thing about most athletes is what they don't understand is that most, and this is true with also every other poor decision in your life, is every poor decision just can't be put in its own box. You have to also step back and look at the ripple effect it has on other areas and other aspects of your life. And that's why it's always good to think things through. Is this really good? Okay, why is it good? Who's making this decision, myself or my ego? And if my ego's making the decision, it's probably a bad one. And if it is, then why am I even thinking this? So you can't question it really enough. I mean, you can obviously overanalyze it, and you have to eventually execute and do things. But there's always a ripple effect. And so if you can pinpoint 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 really bad decisions on big training days then it's just not five. It's just not five workouts it's affecting. It's probably the 2 to 3 after it. And so when you start to pile those together, well, now you're looking at weeks and weeks of underperforming or bad focus or overtraining or over fatigue or getting injured or staying injured. So like again, it's never just one, and that's absolutely never. It's never a thought. I think is that the difference in skipping a workout is one day versus the consequences of forcing yourself a workout could be multiple days or weeks or months if you ends up succumbing to getting really, really sick or getting really, really overtrained or getting an injury. Like, one session is one session if you choose not to do it. But making the wrong decision within the wrong session and forcing yourself to do it or making a bad decision within it can it's just, there's so many decisions to make, and so many athletes are just either naive to it or just, frankly, their person doesn't make the decision, their ego makes the bigger, badder choices, and that leaves the person left to deal with the consequences.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I had another athlete over this weekend that made an in-training decision that I thought was outstanding, and it's the same kind of thing. He's I wouldn't say sort of new to the sport, but he, like you said earlier, like a lot of this stuff is stuff we've never done before. We're continually building, there's always like a new PR, training PR. There's always something happening, and we're building and building, especially if you're going for a longer race for the first time. And he had I think it was like an hour and a half or hour and 20-minute run or something like that. About halfway through, he started kind of having a little pain in his knee that was a little questionable or whatever, and he decided to walk for like 5 minutes. And then he finished out the run, and he said it felt awesome. And it made me think is like sometimes, when you're not used to doing this kind of stuff, when you're not used to running this far and you're always throwing this extra fatigue on your legs, and it's this sort of repetitive motion that your body's just probably getting used to, and that pain that you're feeling a lot of times is just that repetition. And it's sort of just like nailing at you, like a needle poking. And if you just kind of change it up, and like he did, he said, man, I felt like I had to walk. So he walked for 5 minutes. And I think that relief on the body is like kind of, just sort of caring and saying, okay, I'm not going to keep putting you through this kind of like over and over routine. And it just changed the muscle movement a little bit. It gave it a little bit of relief. And then it was like, oh, okay, I'm okay now. So those kind of things, I think, it's like, I think a lot of people coming into the sport will have this tendency to think that it's just like grind it out all the time. When, even within workouts and, a lot of the tough workouts that you design, people, and I remember doing this sort of like with the Moneghetti running a lot. The Moneghetti is sort of like an all-on, run for 30 seconds and then 30 seconds off. And in there you have put all off, like to the point where, super, super slow on your 30 seconds off, or even walk. And I don't think anybody can fathom this idea of, I'm going to walk between these intervals. But maybe that's a good thing, because it's like, you're going all on, and your body's going to want to have this is all about how fast can you recover, right? Isn't that kind of like within a session, and how fast can you get your heart rate back down? I mean, those are all good indicators, and I think you have to train yourself to do that, and you have to have grace on your body within a workout as well, because it's not all about, and that's the trap of the whole posting things on, or whatever, Garmin Connect and all that sort of stuff, is like this pace, my average pace for the day, even though it's an interval workout or a hill workout, and you just feel like you got to grind up and down when you should be working parts of that workout. Mm-hmm. So
it's so much like, coaching is, I think that just like there's always a huge misunderstanding about like why people get a coach, and it's like, you just, maybe they just need extra motivation, or they can't do this, or they just need somebody to really, put a cattle prod on their rear and just make them do things and be hardcore and be a drill sergeant. I'm like, no. Coaching is about this. Is about getting athletes out of their own way and minimizing absolutely idiotic, ridiculous mistakes and in decision making. That is pretty much and a lot of psychology, but that's pretty much all coaching. And there was this I can't remember the company now, but I shared it with you. I think you'll hopefully remember what I'm talking about. But it was a huge business that I can't remember what it is, but it's going to drive me nuts. But it basically said, how have you been so successful the last 20 to 30 years? And, has it been through innovation or this? And it's like, we've tried to make the least amount of stupid decisions as we possibly can. Mm-hmm. And that's why we've been so successful. And if athletes could just take that mantra of, I'm not going to make any stupid decisions today, then you're going to be successful. And I think there was a pro triathlete just last week who raced, I can't remember her name either. I'm showing my age here. I can't remember a damn thing. I know, dude. It's like one day and I'm screwed. And it's just, they said, what's the best advice you can give for all like long distance athletes? And it was that the athlete that makes the fewest amount of mistakes usually wins. And fewest mistakes can usually just be boiled down to fewest amount of really bad decisions. Like, I'm not going to be personally responsible for effing this race up. And that has nothing to do with fitness. It has everything to do with decision making. Because you see it all the time, and we talk about this all the time, is you bike for show, run for dough. And so many athletes make so many absolutely moronic decisions on the bike because they get caught up in the moment, and their ego makes a decision that their body and their self can't. They just can't come back from. It's like your ego is cashing a check your body can't handle. And that's most triathletes every single day in training. And so the reason that most athletes get a coach is they recognize that they just make stupid decisions. And guess what? That's okay. That's why in everything you do in life, you hire someone that knows how to do something better than you or that won't totally screw it up. Like, I know just enough about cars to ruin my own. I know just enough things about things around the house that I know that, I should probably hire somebody to do it first and fix it versus me trying to do it myself and totally breaking it and having to buy a brand new one. Like, that's what we do as people. But when it comes to training and coaching, people are like, it doesn't apply to me. I can't figure it out. And they just can't. And a lot of athletes who are stubborn like that can't figure out why they just can't get out of their own way. And that's what coaches are for, is to get you out of your own way and to limit and to get rid of all the noise, get rid of all the chaos, take away the bad decisions. But just like you said, but also communicate with you that feeling is normal. Because like you said, there are multiple athletes that I'm working with now that are now extending themselves into some of the biggest volume that they've ever done. They're like, I thought this run was going to be all for the first 10 or 15 minutes, but then I grew, then I started feeling awesome. And I don't know where it came from. And you have to tell them, like, listen, you can expect more of this. The more you train, the more consistent you are, the longer it's going to take you to warm up. So then when they go approach the next run, they fully assume, all right, you know what? All right, Robbie, this run, it might not feel good for the first 20, but you know what? That's okay. It's not supposed to. And so when you can be mentally and physically prepared and you know yourself and your body and what to expect, then you can approach runs, or a specific session in a much clearer, specific way that's also going to let you set yourself up for success. And there's just so much understanding and communication also that has to go in with, like, you telling an athlete that, you know what, that's okay to feel that way. But what's not okay is to feel this. You know what I mean? So you should always be able to be, and that's another great reason, like, to have a coach, is to say, you know what, it's okay to do this today. That's okay. Scale 1 to 10. All right, to 2, you can probably continue on. If it's not, if it's X, Y, or Z, you need to be like, oh, what, I would probably take the day off and get athletes out of their own. But listen, it's so much to navigate. Like triathlon training is, for a lot of athletes, it's like putting yourself in a sailboat out at sea with no compass. And you've got to navigate the sea, the wind, direction, everything totally blind with no one to help you. And if you could phone a friend and have somebody else come in with you with a GPS device and help you make decisions and show you the direction to go, why wouldn't you take that? Why wouldn't you have someone help you along the way? And because being in a sailboat alone just sounds like miserable and isolating and lonely. It is. Like, that's the other part of like why a lot of athletes get a coach is they don't want to go this route alone, because it puts so much more pressure, and you put so much more pressure on yourself because you're the one letting yourself down. But if you have a coach, you're not ever going to let your coach down. At least you shouldn't, because they should hopefully communicate with you that it's not possible. But it's to support you and take that burden off of you and putting it onto them. And that's why coaches in professional sports get all the blame when things go bad, and they get most of the time get none of the praise when things go great. But that's part of it. That's part of being a coach is you take the blame because it's your responsibility too. And that's why it doesn't have to be such a lonely, isolating, burnt out endeavor. It can be something, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And that applies with people, and that applies with relationships, and that same thing applies with coaching.
Very well said, man.
Thanks.
Yeah.
At least I didn't forget all that. My wife, Allie, if you listen to this, just hold your tongue, because she has like the worst memory ever, just 24/7. And like, yeah, I forgot something already. She was like, "See, told you, showing your age," because I'm a little bit older than her.
Maybe you're just letting things go, man.
Maybe
them go. There's no sense in holding all that information in your brain, man. You want
to way too much anyway.
It can kind of slow you down.
Let it go, man. Just let it go.
Yeah.
But anyway, we got camp this week, so we'll still be coming to you on Thursday. We have our second triathlon camp of the year, another sold out edition. This is the June camp, which you can expect some wonderful stories next week, as they are always a raucous crew. June camp they're just a special group. Going on this week, we have the welcome dinner Wednesday night, and then we'll rock it through Sunday. And then Sunday, after our open water swim, as we end camp, I'm heading back to my mom's house, packing up the rest of our stuff, and heading to Chattanooga.
Wow.
So this is last cast from Nashville. The one Thursday will be my last one. And we'll be coming to you live from Chattanooga and Nashville starting next week.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have to get we could be tricky for the first little bit because we're going to be on different time zones for the first time ever.
Oh, man. So that's right. Am I going to have to compromise here?
I'll take it. Let's do this. I'll ease your way into the transition, and I'll take the 10 a.m. start, and you can take the 9. Then we might work it down to I'll be 9:45 and 8:45, and I think 8:30 would be a good compromise. But we'll work our way. We won't make any rash decisions. We'll just take things slowly
and see how warm it up.
Exactly. We'll just warm it up. We'll try to negative split that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm excited to kind of get settled in and start that journey, and then we got a lot of exciting things coming up. But anyway, that is it. If you want more info on the rest of the fun and exciting things that we do, you can always hop over to our one-stop shop that is crushingiron.com. We have info on our training camp, swim analysis, blog, gear, our club membership, swim squad info, where we do swim analysis and swim workouts for you, and then also all training and coaching packages with coach bios, all things Crushing Iron. And you can always check it out there at crushingiron.com. If you got specific questions or feedback, you can hit up Mike, crushingiron@gmail.com, or you can always email me directly as well at c26coach@gmail.com.
All right, man.
That is it.
That is it.
See you Wednesday night.
Oh, that's right. See you Wednesday night for the camp kickoff. Anything else?
All I got, man.
Did you watch the U.S. Open yesterday?
0.
Yeah, I caught a little bit.
Interest.
Okay.
That's effort on a team sport. That's not even a team sport. That's
we can't even go there anymore.
We'll sign off.
All right, man. I'll catch you later.
And see you, buddy. Bye.